Hi, everyone. My name is Jialin Pan, and I'm currently the president of IRCAM Taiwan section. So it's very nice meeting you. And also, I'm also an associate professor in Taipei. I work in the Department of Music of the University of Taipei. And today I'm very glad to host this session of the International Video Forum Conference. Maybe we can call this between the C-Lab in Taiwan and IRCAM in Paris. As for this session about music and improvisation, we have Professor Georges Bloch and Dr. Jérôme NIKA and Professor Hervé, which is, we call it in Chinese is许德彰, with us. So maybe I have like a couple of seconds for everyone to introduce yourself. Maybe we can start with Hervé. Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you all. My name is Tak. I'm a composer and musician, and yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'll just add something. Hervé is now, of course, now he's a faculty in Taipei, and he's now working in a sound lab, also a sound lab in the university in Taiwan. And he got his doctoral degree in Boston University. Yeah. So this
Thank you.
Yeah, just like
Thank you for doing my job. I'm sorry.
Good. And maybe we can have some time for NIKA. You want to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Jérôme NIKA. I'm a researcher in the music representations team at IRCAM. And so in this team, we work on the design of generative agents for music performance and composition. So our work is to design models and tools using what some people can call AI to generate music and agents that can be integrated in a compositional workflow, so that can be guided by a composer to generate musical material, or that can be used during the performance in a very interactive way to produce musical discourse.
Cool. Yeah, and also we have Professor Georges Bloch with us. So George, do you want to introduce a little bit yourself?
Yes, I studied. I started working in interactive music with Georges Hervé in the 70s, so that doesn't make me any younger. So the first really interactive setup of computer music, and I was very soon involved in composed improvisation. Now I teach in Strasbourg University, and I'm a researcher attached to the music representation team of IRCAM. And I've been working with Hervé for quite a while now. I mean, making this sort of a strange machine things, because what I've been interested in for a very long time is co-improvisation. That is, where a machine is working with the performer on where we create a sort of complex system where the performer and the machine are making propositions that we will come to that later. And so I'm very happy to be invited here, and I'm going to give the word to Hervé, who is going to say a wonderful thing. The great thing with Hervé, I want to say something about Hervé before he presents it, he introduces himself. Hervé, the first time I met him, said, "I hate machines." You know, that was 10 years ago. He said, "I never will work with machines." So that's a good introduction for him.
Yeah, so maybe I will add up. Also with us, we have the pianist, Mr. Sellin. Yeah, that just Jorge just introduced that 10 years before he hated machines, but right now maybe he loves it. So because myself, I work with electronic music for a little, but mostly I compose with no electronics. So maybe I can ask for the audience. I have a question now for George. So if you are working with like singers or musicians, they don't like Mr. Sellin, like 10 years ago, they don't like electronics music, or they don't like machine. What is the first thing you will communicate with them?
Yeah, Hervé, please.
Yes, I can add something. Machines are something, but there is always people behind machines. And that's how I came to this with Georges and Jérôme and some other people. So to me it was interesting I'm very interested and involved in improvisation as a jazz pianist. And I teach at the National Conservatoire in Paris. So experimentation is very important in our musics. And then when I met Georges and Jérôme and all the people from IRCAM, I was very interested in the whole process, not just working with machines, because to me it's really, really more than that. Because the people who made those programs, they are humans. And people who are taking care of those programs and managing those programs, they are humans. And this is how I stay connected with it. So for me, machines is not my activity, but what we can do all together, it's really exciting. And the way the machine reacts now, it gives me really some good food to eat. So that's why I'm always excited to work with Georges and Jérôme and all those machines. It's not just machines, it's human people around, and what we did, for example, the last show we did in September was a real profound thing. It was not just playing for machines or with machines. To me, I was very involved in sensibility, in improvisation, and in something very, very human. That's why I'm still here, and I'm still so happy to be here with those guys, and very honored and happy to be here with you today.
So, Mr. Sellin, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more. What would be the difference between like improvise with a machine and improvise with a human musician? What would be the difference? Is it the same, or is there
It's a
something?
very interesting question, but it's related to what I just said. I'm not thinking that I'm improvising with machine. I'm improvising with music, with sounds, with images, and I'm reacting to. That's the way I practice improvisation. I'm not calculating. I'm not playing what I practiced at home before. I'm just reacting on the spot. And the spot is the machine, the spot is the screen, the spot is the sound, and the spot is also what Jérôme or Georges give to me. And me, I can close my eyes and think that if it's like being with people.
How about the framework?
The highest point that this realization is about.
I agree with this challenge thing, but I think there is something to add about this. These systems that we developed, what we are looking for is the balance between challenge, surprise, and composition in a way. What I want to say is that, for instance, in the last part of the concert that Hervé and Georges performed, the process was to compose the behaviors of the agents, saying, for instance, I will have one generative agent that will embed this musical memory, this singer, this part of opera, and that will have this kind of behavior. For instance, listening to melody, or listening to the energy, or listening to the texture that Hervé will play. And this idea is to have a balance between the behavior that is composed. We know that this agent will listen to the harmony and will react using, line riffs. But the challenge and the surprise will be how the system will instantiate an answer to this input, knowing that it will listen to harmony and knowing that it will use this particular kind of memory.
I'm also curious how much of the piece are done during the rehearsal process, because you keep mentioning that you are also trying to predict how the machine reacts to the musician or to the music that you fit in. So I'm sure there are lots of unexpectancy during the rehearsals. I always love unexpected things like surprise challenge. So how much, how do you decide, like during the rehearsals? This could be part of the piece or this should not? I'm just curious. Yeah.
I will just say something quite general, and then I will let Georges and Hervé answer for their piece. But with this system, the rehearsal is a way to tune the instrument. Because even if you want to have improvisation and to be surprised, you just want to test and to tune the instrument so that you know that using this memory and this listening mechanism, you will get something or not. Or you have to tune your instrument, for instance, to say, okay, this musical memory is very interesting if we listen to melody, but it's not that interesting if we listen to energy. And maybe the first intuition was to use this memory and to observe energy, but you realize while rehearsing, while testing, that melody is a more interesting way to get into this material. So this is just a general thing that I wanted to say. Rehearsal is interesting, not only to rehearse and to practice instruments, but to tune the instruments also.
Okay. So maybe I want to add more, one like technical things maybe. How much as the database that before the rehearsal, you need to feed in the machine or the patch, the database of the sound or something? How huge is that?
This depends on the musical project. Maybe I will let Georges and Hervé answer for their project, but for some project, the goal will be to play with a very minimal musical memory. We call it memory in our team. Or at the opposite, some projects will decide, having the Lullaby Experience project by composer Pascal Dussapin that is explained in the other video. In this project, the goal was to use a massive memory of a lot of lullabies, and sometimes the project is to be able to develop something starting from a very short musical memory.
Okay. So, Georges, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, for that particular project, it's a rather memory-oriented project that is, since we were starting with the three ladies, which, by the way, are five ladies, so more than three, they're multiplicated with time. Since we're starting with three ladies, we very much have a memory which is very present. I can just concur with what Jérôme said, that sometimes we just take, actually we can even start from what the pianist or the performer plays. We can record it, analyze it, improvise on it, and so on. So basically we could have no memory. The only memory we have is the memory of the concert, which is already something very important. I wanted to add something about tuning the machine and so on. I mean, the rehearsal part is very, very important. It's even before tuning the machine, choosing which thing we are going to use. For example, let's take our project. We know we are going to use the three ladies or five of them, but whatever. We are going to use, let's say, Diane Reeves. And just we start to see what's happening and how such descriptor will work. And there's something which Jérôme didn't say, which is that not only the descriptor has to work as a good analysis of the piece of the memory, that is, we find a descriptor on which we get a very beautiful mapping and very good answers to very interesting diverse things to navigate into Diane Reeves. But let's take this example. This wonderful thing with which we improvise with the machine wonderfully, when we play the piano and when the thing is listening to the piano, the we have, let's say, 25 different values of things, and the piano is always value 15. So whatever Hervé plays, he can sit on the piano, play the whatever, it's always 15. So in that case, it doesn't work because our analysis is wonderful for the excerpt, but it's not wonderful for the interaction. So it's a long process, and this is speaking about tuning the machine. It's not only tuning the machine; it's tuning the co-improvisation of the machine and the piano. Of course, if he had been working with a saxophone player, probably this wonderful analysis would have worked, and I would have had the 25 things, and it would have worked wonderfully. Unfortunately, with the piano, it doesn't work, or the opposite. So it's a long process. And the second thing, speaking about rehearsal, is that of course we made a scenario, but that's more like we decided how the thing was going. I told you there were two brands of machines. There were the one with the jazz grade and the second one listening, and basically this is a scenario. This is meaning we have a little sheet saying, okay, we do this and that and that and that. But that's finally that's what we do at the end. In the end, it's when basically when the thing is ready and we decide, okay, we'll do this. But that's just how to say the cue sheet for a concert more than something very important, not more than the composition, even if it's of course very important. When we started the project, I have to say we had just the first machine, this machine with the harmonic structures, and I'm saying, okay, it's harmonic structure. We take the Man I Love, or we took at that time we were using Autumn Leaves, the Cosma da 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 da, and so on, and okay. We say it's easy, it's especially Autumn Leaves, it's a cycle of fifths and so on. Okay, so it's a very simple structure. But what do you do? I'm just asking you a simple question. We were using music by Puccini and Mahler, and how do you fit Puccini and Mahler into a jazz chord progression? And that was. You can't imagine the fights between me and Hervé. You can't hear anything. But this is a B. No, this is E, and so on. We had a lot of fun, saying, and to a certain extent, this is where the whole musical fun was. That this sort of interaction and saying, okay, in Puccini, I'm hearing this thing. And him telling me, not at all, and sitting on the piano and saying, no, I hear this, and I say, no, I hear this, and that's a wonderful thing because, of course, I mean, it's not that he was right, I was wrong. Generally, he's right because he's better, but that's not the point. The point is that we were both right. We both heard things corresponding to our culture, and that's more interesting than he's right, I'm wrong, or I'm right, he's wrong. This is bullshit, The real thing was we were suddenly developing a musical discourse about how to hear this thing to fit into a compositional process made by machines, which in that case we have decided works with a very small vocabulary of chords. Okay, cool. So this is the fun. For me, this is fun. This is great fun.
Okay, thank you very much.
And to me, if I can add something, there is a very important point to me that what Georges is talking about, it's very high to me, this relationship between him and me, and the machine has to be at that level to me. That level of humanity, that level of discussion, that level of those funny fights, the machine is a part of it. And to me, that's why I'm not asking anymore if I like the machines or not. I love those machines because they are with us.
Okay.
They are with me, they are with Georges, they are with Jérôme, and I feel comfortable with it because we are at the same level.
It's just like an ensemble.
I'm not an idealist, but this is the important point. The machine is strong, and the machine allows us to be at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if I can add something, I think that's this is a really important point. I remember that one day a student asked me, "Do you think that the system that you developed, or the system that Georges and Hervé used for the performance, do you think that the system produces new music, or will produce new music, or is it what you're trying to do?" And I think that the answer is no. What we're trying to produce is not new music, but when producing the system, when designing the system. Mm-hmm. But the aim is to maybe one day to be able to enable new music practices. And then maybe that people using these systems, and so being able to explore new music practices, will be able to produce and to create a new music. But I think that the goal of this research and development project are to develop instruments that enable new practices. And these practices are, for instance, thing that Georges and Hervé said, to agree between an acoustic musician and an electronic musician on what is the material, what is a memory, how do we want to interact with it, and how do we create a third voice, the voice of interaction, knowing that you playing the piano, you provide the stimulus, and me behind the computer, I compose in real time the behavior of the system.
Okay, thank you. And as a host, because Zhang is always also sitting with us, and since he did a presentation in Chinese, maybe we can have some little time for you to introduce a little bit on your work. And I believe that in your PowerPoint, I saw that you're having like a guqin like style, or because you love the guqin music, and you have
yes.
like a composed improvisation concept inside. And maybe I can leave you some
Yes.
seconds for that. Yeah.
I inspired by music, improvised music a lot, but I'm a composer that almost always written everything out. I leave some space for performers. The improvisation I do most of the time are like live electronics with ambience, city ambience. But that my role is more like a DJ, that I got the sound I have, and then I do live manipulation with the sound. And the current project that I'm working on with like children, which is like from age to 8 to 10. They don't know anything about music, they don't read score. So I have to find a way to let them play together. So there's some kind of improvisation, but there's also like a gray area. Mm-hmm. You can say that it's an indeterminacy, because there's a framework. A lot of things have already been decided. There's space for them to improvise. So that's my experience. I also checked the system this afternoon. It's really interesting. And I try to fit in some data. I can already see a lot of potential. I would see that more like a compositional tools, rather than using it as like a live improvisation plugins. I think there are already some projects that have already done as like a compositional tools, right? Maybe you can explain it.
Yes, but please, I will be very interested in knowing what is your musical practice. But just to answer your question, yes, this project is, we try to make a link between purely reactive strategies and planning strategies, between interaction and composition. And one of the main research questions is exactly what you said, that is to say, what are the common processes, what are the shared mechanisms that we could need in a compositional process and in a process which is purely interactive. And one example is generate music from a high level or from an abstract specification. If you're a composer saying to your tool, I would like to generate material that would match this evolution, or if you're improvising and you're saying to your instruments, I would like you to play something that matches this musical intention that I have now, you realize that in a way, the same kind of mechanisms could be put into play at that level.
Interesting.
And for improvisation, I think for the kids, they really need some guide for that. They can, but because they can always sing and having a lot of surprises. Yeah. So, do you have any like rules or something or?
Yeah.
No.
I have to set all kind of rules. Yeah.
Oh, you have to set rules. Okay.
Use numbers. Use games. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be innovative. Yeah. You have to decide all kind of game for them to play. So that's easy for them to memorize. So it's some kind of rules, or you can say there's also a musical framework through the game. Yeah. So yeah, that's some of the way.
Cool. Yeah. So I think working with a professional pianist or professional singers, and in working with kids, they are like very different, but they're still like improvisation a lot and musical things, events, working on that. Okay.
It's just like constraint. You know what you can't do with the kid. For example, musical like a harmonic framework or melodic framework. They can't play instrument. They can't sing well. But you have a lot of other materials like the noise. You have stories. You have all kind of sound that they could generate through their voice or through their bodies. So I would say, there's still a lot of possibility in the music. I don't see that like I can't do anything with it. Yeah, and of course I have like live electronics, so I could manipulate the sound during live. I can use I can do some patches for them to play to like be a DJ as a kid, things like that.
Yeah. So still, here comes patches were very useful for the kids too.
Yeah. I still miss those days when I was in this place. Yeah.
I was wondering if Tat worked with children and worked with the cat arts, which is something which allows to navigate.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you?
I use that in a lot of my other projects. Not this time particularly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
feeding with children, recording them and then having them try to navigate inside this thing and try to understand what they've done, and after that having them to rebuild new material from what they've heard would be really interesting. Actually, this spectral descriptors oriented navigation is very interesting, and actually what Jérôme did in the version we use is a very big improvement, since he makes separated space from what cat arts find.
Yeah, it's not exactly an improvement. It's another kind of playing mode, in the way that using cat arts you navigate through space, and you have a continuum between acoustic entities. And in this system we used the same cat arts.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
To build something that is a navigation through time and through categories. But maybe you could. I would be interested in knowing a little more in your practice in this link or this balance between composition and improvisation.
I need a formal structure as a composer, so I need the direction, or like the bold paradigm, like Professor Bloch said. I need where the music should go, or to which direction at a certain moment or certain time. So I would say it's not that much difference to compose music that has written down already everything, with things that you more or less know what will be the result. So in this case, I already more or less could predict what this kid could generate through instrument or through their bodies. It's just there would be some unexpected thing, and I embrace it, and I leave the space in the work for these things or this unexpected thing to be blossom. So yeah, I'm not sure if I have answered your question.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the katats, I'm actually using that like quite a lot too. Also in this project. So in this project, I'm using katats. I fit in lots of historical recording of the area that I'm working with the kids. They are from like in the South Taiwan. So I have found lots of like historical recording and live ambience of the cities. I fit into the system of the katat and I play around with it. So yeah, it's also part of the project.
Can I ask you a question? Did you
Yes.
you said that you're working a lot with children?
Not really. This is the first time actually.
That was just the point at
Yeah.
the moment. But did you have experimentation also with professional musicians? And what are the reaction of musician improvisators when they work with you? Are they like I was 10 years ago? Did they hate the machine, or did they like to work on it? And is it working?
Yes. They love iPad, you know. They love iPhone, they love iPad. So yeah, if you have something for them to play, they are happy to work with it. Yeah. So my work is more like to design the game for them to have fun. And if they have fun, the musical result is usually good. And if the game is boring, it's not interesting enough for them to be focused or have this kind of feeling of participate inside the music, the musical result is bad, I think. Yeah, it's quite obvious.
Because what was also telling Georges before, I remember this concert we did, the last concert we did in September, and when I'm listening to it, I'm very surprised because what I played in this concert, I was not thinking, I was not able, but able in this situation to play what I played. So to me, it gives me a lot of inspiration. So it's a whole process, with people, with the machines, with the situation, with the films, with the subject of it. But what I did in this performance for me was unique, and it was played that day at this time, and the next time will be completely different. Even if we have some frame, like some songs or some films, some scenarios and everything, but it's very exciting for a musician, because every time we are ready to do something, we know that we are going to do something different. And this is really the matter about improvisation. And to me, improvisation is not a repertoire; it's an attitude. And when even we play written music or classical music, the attitude of a performer is improvising all the time, because the moment is unique, the people is unique, the weather is unique, the way you feel, it's always unique. So if we include the machine in this process, is something fantastic.
Yeah. I think Mr. Sellin just did the very wonderful conclusion for me for our session. Yeah, that's good. That's good, because I feel that's the same thing. That's the beauty of improvisation. Yeah, we just need to enjoy the moment. Yeah. And of course, working with kids, you need to enjoy the moment a lot. Yeah. And working with jazz, singers, also jazz pianists, even you're playing the framed harmony process, or the framework, you still enjoy the rhythm or the feeling at the moment. Yeah, and I think that for even as a composed improvisation, we're having a lot of fun as a composer with improvising. Yeah.
I want to add something maybe, and ask Georges and Jérôme to say something about this.
Okay, sure.
If we can have this discussion, is because the level of the technology with those machines is very high. Again, maybe I'm just repeating, but I don't want to put everything about just music and people and humanity and feelings. We can do that because the machine is something really amazing about technology, and I was very impressed on that, and I'm sure it's a very important point. It's not just because there is people behind the machines and we're talking about music, but the everything we can use in those machines with those programs and the evolution I saw in those machines for the last 5 years, to me is amazing. And that's why I'm just a part of it, I feel so exciting with that.
Thank you. And I believe we are in a very different generation right now. So also electronics or music, electronic music or like machines are very helpful tools, and instead of like a really, really strange object for music anymore. Yeah, so because for composers, we have a lot to talk about, and we can last this conversation for like 3 hours or 4 hours. So I think it's time for us to stop it here. Maybe we can communicate later if we have any other chances. And so thank you for you guys and all the professors like Mr. Sellin, Georges, Jérôme, and Jérôme. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to you.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Yeah. Bye from Taipei. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye.